Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 10th edition of the PB Political Podcast. I'm Ishan Pokrell.
My name is Cameron Cummings.
And today we are joined by the former economic developer for the Huntsville-Madison County Chamber of Commerce, co-founder of the North Alabama Home Building Academy, and candidate for United States Congress in Alabama's 5th District, John Roberts. Welcome to the podcast, John.
Sean and Cameron, thanks so much for having me on. We're excited to be here with you today, and I'll say, as a young candidate, just age 30, it excites me to see other young people in the political arena, obviously coming from the media side and coverage, but it's going to take all of us collectively really get that next generation going. So I'm really impressed with the work y'all have already put out and look forward to following along for a long time to come.
Thank you. I guess, do you want me to start off with a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I guess this is just going into your background. I know you've been on a lot of things, as Ishan even said in your introductory. But one thing that I found interesting is that you served as the Business Retention and Expansion Director for Huntsville-Madison County of the Chamber of Commerce. Is that right?
That's correct.
So I was just curious.
2019.
Okay. Oh, you're still currently serving, or?
I stepped away. So for me to have an actual shot at winning this thing, I wanted to be all in. And I knew it would take some sacrifice, but I stepped away where I could pursue my candidacy full time, but stepped away, I guess, in July 2021. So I've been out running since the end of July for the congressional seat.
Okay. And how do you think that's helped you? I know, obviously helping with a lot of local businesses as Huntsville is growing so rapidly. How do you feel like that's helped you be able to interact with people better and push out your campaign?
Well, you look at economic development, a lot of people say that word and hear economic development, but they truly don't know and understand what it means. So it really exposed me to a wide variety of different industries. We worked obviously with Mazda, Toyota, and the suppliers out there, so advanced manufacturing. You look at the robotics side of that, obviously Huntsville, the defense environment here, and the IT and cyber, things with, worked on Facebook data project up in North Huntsville, Torch Technologies down in South Huntsville. So I got a wide, net and experience on different technologies and industries. And then the players that make this region go, you understand what makes North Alabama such a special place. We've got, great quality of life here. We've got relatively low cost of living compared to most markets of similar size. We've got excellent educational assets. We've got, just the downtown synergy that's happening, the different developments around the community here in North Alabama, not just in Madison County, but there's things happening in Decatur, over in Scottsboro and Athens as well, that make this a really appealing community. So you learn how to sell this community and what makes it so great, and then now you can understand how to preserve that and keep the momentum going. So it really gave me a good perch to take a look at and learn from some great people and build those connections that are certainly paying off currently during the campaign and will pay off once elected to this congressional seat.
Yeah. So let me just say this real quick. So you have the economic development, but you also have you co-founded the Madison Academy Home Building Academy, or the North Alabama Home Building Academy, which we've heard about it a lot. I know I've heard about the name, but I don't know anything about the actual organization itself, other than what I've researched, obviously. So can you just dive into what that's like been for you and how it's preparing you for this campaign?
Absolutely. So my first job out of college, went to Alabama for undergrad and master's, I became the Government Affairs and Workforce Development Director for the Huntsville-Madison County Builders Association. So one thing I fought for was just good, sound regulatory policies with our local and state government work, down whether it's in Huntsville or Madison or down in Montgomery, passing good legislation. But the other piece that I worked with was the workforce side, and it was promoting trade education. It was supporting different programs at the K through 12 system to make sure they had the resources and the expertise to take advantage of in the construction trades. But we got to a point where what the school system, and a lot of it was not due to the school system itself. It was just, it's a tough field to really teach in the K through 12 system with just some regulatory burdens, some red tape that come with the skilled trades. I know things have moved a little bit since I started this, but we just weren't getting anywhere with producing a ready product, which is a student that graduates through the public school system and can enter the job on day one with a skill set that they can actually use and benefit their community. And so we went to the drawing board and said, what can we do independently to provide our industry, the home building industry, with ready to go people and also invest in people where they have the skill set that they can develop to sustain a long-term career. And so we started scanning across the nation and trying to piece together something that would work for North Alabama. And so what the result of that was North Alabama Home Building Academy. So we knew that we didn't want to do a long-term thing, because usually the 2-year system, they have some programs, but by the time people get into those, they ended up not completing those credentials, whether it was just a short-term certificate or an associate's degree or a 4-year degree, because there was job offers too good. The demand was too great out there within the community for the skilled trades. So we knew we wanted to keep it short-term. So we started with an 8-week program that is like a boot camp style course where they get safety training, tool competency, blueprint reading, construction math, and we combined that with financial literacy and resume prep. And then the membership of the Home Builders Association would have a career fair at the back end of that to hire those people. So we've had over 200 graduates go through that program since January of 2020. We have a 92% retention rate with that program. We've added a 4-week expedited course where it's just, they meet more throughout the week and longer hours. We've now added a stackable credential with Drake State. And Pat Sims and her team out there at Drake State have been phenomenal to work with. And so that way you can really start saying, all right, we've got somebody in the industry. What can we do to develop them further, and then get that on-the-job training that's so key to this? But the folks that are members that have been hiring, been very pleased with the product. We've seen a lot of great stories come out of this program. We had one guy that was he was homeless, and he was walking every night to class. Now he ended up graduating, and they get a tool belt and things ready to start on the job day one. He was able to graduate, get a job, and now he's starting to move up within that company and has taken over an apartment lease, and now he's not on the streets anymore. He's got a career where he's making good money with a trajectory where the sky's the limit. If you've got a little bit of business sense and you show up and can do a good job and do what you say you're going to do, you can write your ticket in North Alabama right now. So we're really proud of that. And just looking at it from a workforce piece, I think we've recruited so many jobs in North Alabama, and I was blessed to be a part of some of those jobs we recruited. But now we've got to fill those jobs. We got to get more people here. We got to get more people upskilled to get into those in-demand jobs. So I'm really excited with my background and expertise to apply that from a federal standpoint in this office.
So how many people have moved on from the Home Builders Academy to the actual workforce since you started it? Do you have a number?
That's all of them. All 200 have graduated. They've moved right into the workforce, and we still track. And it's about 92% retention rate on that. So a huge number of those people that go through the program and graduate remain in the construction trades today. Obviously, we're looking at it in a short term with 2 years just up and running now, but the results are very promising. The National Association recognizes the workforce program of the year for the entire country in 2020. Governor Ivey recognizes one of the top state workforce programs for any industry in 2020 as well. So there's a lot of promise there. And it's not just a construction and skilled trade, something that for that industry specific. It's a blueprint that has already been applied to other industries. There's a program in town called Hatch that deals with the culinary and hospitality industry. And they've started and taking a lot of the steps we took with the Home Builders Association, kind of probably alleviated some of the upstart pains and aches of more of running a startup and getting things off the ground. They were able to take the blueprint of what we did and apply it to another industry. So I see this something as a good starting point for anyone really focused on workforce development, that 18 plus world where people that are finished high school already.
So, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm just kind of piggybacking off of that. I know Huntsville just recently beat out Birmingham for the largest city in Alabama. So, just doing something, I guess, different, showing people different avenues of a career, because even with all these buildings being made and all these people coming, they need houses to live in. They need people to build them, and prices are only going up. People are getting better education through programs like your own, to pretty much, like you said, write their own ticket. So, I mean, that's also just a really good thing that you helped create, as well as you were on the board of directors for Free to Teach and the North Alabama Red Cross. So just saying all that, you've been
everywhere,
in every little pocket of North Alabama to get a good feel of everyone.
Yeah, I've been really blessed to have some great opportunities. And once you have opportunities, you got to take advantage of them. And, I've had a lot of people that's invested time and energy into me. to set me up to be in a good position to lead. And I've been able to take advantage of those opportunities. But you've got organizations like Free to Teach, which provide free school supplies to all the public school teachers within Madison County. We last year gave out about $1.2 million in value of school supplies. The average shop is north of $500, and it really makes a big impact on the teachers. I can't tell you how many times we get a letter sent to us or just a teacher stopping by the store and talking about how much a difference it made for their classroom and how much it impacted their students. Because at the end of the day, it's about improving the lives of those students and making sure they have every resource available to them to be successful in the classroom. So playing a small role in that's been very beneficial. And it also has given me I love education. I love education policy, and it's really kind of given me a way to serve the education community. So very fortunate to do that. And, things like the Red Cross, obviously most everybody's familiar with the work of the Red Cross, whether it's from a natural disaster or their blood drives that they do. It's a true nationwide community organization that serves for the right reasons, that can do a lot of good in a very quick amount of time, especially on that natural disaster front. I mean, we send out teams that respond very quickly, right there on the front lines. So being able to help North Alabama in a small capacity with that team has been really fun to do. And I look forward to continuing to see where these leadership roles take me and getting involved in other organizations down the road as well.
Yeah, so that's what I was wondering. You are a pretty big figure in the community, but it's not like you're not really out there in the sense that you're not like the mayor or anything, like, what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
So you have like obviously influenced the community in a positive way. So why did you decide to run for Congress and leave all of these leave the Home Builders Academy, leave all of those behind for now?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reasons. I'll get into the meat of why, but this isn't just my first foray into the political sphere either. I've worked on Capitol Hill, interned for Senator Shelby and Senator Sessions on Capitol Hill. I interned for Senator Shelby, his field office here in Huntsville, interned for Mayor Battle as well back in 2013, and worked on a number of campaigns throughout the state. And I grew up around politics, had members of my family serving the state legislature. So I really, for better or worse, absolutely love politics. I know it's for you guys, y'all probably in the same boat, doing things like this. Like, it's awesome to be engaged in the political process. It's fun. I love history. But it's also a little daunting at times because it's just you're butting heads with folks. You see the problems that exist. But when I was taking a look at this race specifically, a lot of people ask, why Congress? Why not, a state race or city council? But there's multiple reasons that for that where I got to this. But I knew it was going to be an open seat. I knew Congressman Brooks was looking at running for Senate. Obviously, that transpired. Then I knew some of the people that were looking at running, Chairman Strong being one of those. He jumped out there. Casey Wardynski, I'd heard that name floating around about him jumping in, and he ended up doing it. And I didn't, there were some others that jumped in as well. So I started looking at the field and analyzing. It wasn't something I took lightly or something I just woke up and said, hey, I'm going to run for Congress. Day in, day out, whether through just, building relationship, community, reading a ton of books. Like I said, I'm a student of history. I mean, they're constantly reading something around politics, listening to podcasts, staying engaged in a wide range of sources, so that I'm prepared to lead if there was an opportunity to do so. And I saw the way the field was shaping up, and I saw that there was actually a pathway. But the reason why I got into this, though, is because I see that there's a crisis of leadership in this country. You look at some of the stats, 72% of Americans think that America's on the wrong track. We've got about under 25% they say they don't trust the American government. So we've got people that fail to do the right things. We have people that are unwilling to tell the truth to people. We've got people that are more concerned with what their next election looks like and doing things politically expedient rather than building trust in institutions. I mean, you look at the media, the education system, our government, people don't trust anything anymore. Everybody's lost their credibility. And I think that we've got to start sending people that will do the right things, people that will do their homework, people that are in it to serve the constituents of their district rather than themselves and looking at what's next, for their election. And, we don't have to accept the way that things have been. I'm sure you guys, a big reason why y'all probably started your podcast and your website and news outlets, because you saw whether it was just a hyper-partisanship in the news media or a lack of really solid resources, a place to turn that you say, hey, that's a reliable media source. I don't know your intentions behind it, but from what I've seen externally that you guys put out there, it seems like, hey, I'm looking for something just down the middle. Here's the facts, and here's maybe a different little twist on it to provide people. And so I think we've got to offer people new choices. And then in addition, you look at the world, it's changing drastically. New technology is emerging, new industries are out there, and we can't afford to send leaders that are, are outdated in their thinking. They're thinking in solutions of the past instead of looking at ways to provide solutions for the future. If we're going to continue this country to take advantage and be the supreme dominant leader on the global stage, we've got to have people that are willing to go and understand things, whether it's the cyber technology, cryptocurrencies. There's just so many things that are taking place that it's going to take people that were brought up in a new era that have different solutions, different ideas, different perspectives to move us forward. Because we've got new opportunities, there's new challenges out there. And then you look at it again, like nothing ever really, we don't do anything big anymore. And I say that from the North Alabama community, like the moonshot. We couldn't do the Apollo program in 2022. I firmly believe that because we are so divided, we're so partisan, and we stay focused on these petty political issues instead of focusing on real solutions to real problems. People are hurting. I mean, almost 40% of Americans, if they had a charge over $400, they couldn't survive. We've got things that, whether it be the inflation problem or the supply chain crisis that we've all experienced in the last two plus years now.
What? We seem to have lost John.
No,
okay, he's back. Okay, yeah.
It's been time to fix those problems.
Okay. You cut out there a little bit after the supply chain crisis.
Yes.
Can you just go back a little bit there?
Yeah, just we've got to have people that are willing to do the work, willing to work across the aisle, and not sit there and look at what ways can I score political points, what ways can I, squeeze a little extra dollars out of some people to contribute just because I put out some social media post or something that was very hyper partisan that had a shock value that really got media coverage versus saying, hey, how can we solve this problem? What is needed? Who do we need to get on board? What are the different angles? What does it look like from someone that looks at it from a liberal lens or a conservative lens? Because it's no side, right or left, has 100% monopoly on the truth or has the 100% monopoly on a sure solution. So what can we do to work collectively to positively impact the greatest number of people? So I got into this race because I think we've got to send people like that, especially from North Alabama, as much federal influence that is through this community in this congressional district. We've got to have someone that has the right temperament to lead, the right temperament to have open conversations with people and sit back and listen and then go to work for the people of North Alabama. So I didn't see that shaping up in this race with the people that got out there and the way they were conducting themselves. And I thought there was an opportunity to serve, and so I've answered that call.
You have a very interesting take on it, especially considering you mentioned cryptocurrency, just like futuristic, just like not futuristic really, but more newer ways of doing like everything really in life.
Currently highly underregulated. There's nothing going on. It's pretty much anyone can make their own rules.
Yeah,
and it's kind of just a.
But I mentioned it because we're in a very technological district. We have the Space Force coming in.
The FBI.
We have the FBI coming in. We already have the Space and Rocket Center, which a lot of the Redstone Arsenal.
Also, one of the biggest things, in my opinion, but I'm kind of like a cyber geek. The School of Cyber Technologies is moving out of Oakwood into their new campus next to UAH.
So just like with those. So is that like you mentioned those, and you mentioned that's the reason you're running. So how do you aim to convince voters? Because you still, in the end, you still need like no matter how good your ideas are, you still need to win the election. So how do you because Chairman Strong, Dale Strong, Mr. Strong he's been in the public eye for a long time.
Sure.
So how do you convince? I see, understand. Obviously, your points make sense. They're very valid, and it is the world we're moving into. But how do you aim to make the voters think that? How do you aim to convince them that you're the better candidate for the future rather than Mr. Strong, who's been here for a while but could have less futuristic ideas than you?
What we've been doing is showing up. That's my proposition values. I'm going to show up in your community. We were in Jackson County yesterday. It was our 21st time in Jackson County. I would be absolutely shocked if anyone else in this campaign Any other candidates have been double-digit times to Jackson County, and that goes across the board. We are getting in front of the maximum number of people we can, whether it's at the door, sitting there knocking doors on their patio, or sitting there to an event. Like we were at a pancake breakfast yesterday morning. We go to different, whether it's a GOP club or education, something. We're going where people are and showing up and listening. There's a problem we've seen is that everybody wants to be heard, but no one wants to listen. And so leading that way and saying, hey, we're willing to sit back and listen to what your concerns are, understand what you're most passionate about, and sit there and know that we don't have all the answers, but we're willing to do the work necessary to get the answers and provide solutions for people. So you look at it from that lens. So how can we serve the people of North Alabama the best, going up against someone that maybe, for lack of better, as a career politician, that's Dale Strong has been around since '96. And so we've got to overcome that. And so just showing up in people's communities, going places people don't typically go, and just, like I said, sitting back and listening has been very helpful. But another thing we've learned, too, is that a lot of people outside Madison County, or even in pockets of Madison County, don't even know who's running in this race. Part of that is because, there's the Senate race, the governor's race are sucking up a lot of the oxygen in the room. And there just hasn't been a lot of, synergy happening around our race, which may be an advantage for us because people aren't drumming it up, saying, hey, this person, this person, this person. So when you go to those pockets, go knock on thousands of doors, it's that much more effective. And over 50% of the Republican votes are outside of Madison County. And I grew up in Morgan County. So Morgan County is the second most populous county in North Alabama in this congressional district. A lot of people remember my family's name, not because of anything I've done, but my family, multiple people serve in the state legislature over there. They've owned businesses throughout Hartselle and Decatur. And people they ask me, which Roberts are you related to, when I'm on their doorstep? And it's been pretty fun to hear stories about my family, things I didn't know, or just thoughts and opinions that they've had. And it's been really positive to get out and hear some of those stories. So, that's how we combat it. And then doing things in a way that's not a traditional campaign. So I'll give you guys a little bit of a peek under the hood of how we've been running our campaign. We looked at it from the very get-go. I'll admit, I probably made a few mistakes early on. The first couple months. I was 29 at the time, just starting what's an upstart campaign. I went kind of the traditional route. I hired a DC consultant. I did what I thought you needed to do. We did our big announcement video, which I don't regret that. It was really fun to do. Full House was a group out of Virginia. They did Glenn Youngkin's governor's race was the media firm with that. So they do phenomenal work, and they made me look good somehow. And so I enjoyed doing that. But we ran a typical campaign for probably the first 2 months, going to some small businesses, going to some GOP clubs, and then we're trying to raise a bunch of money to do a media blitz in the last, 8 weeks, which is right now. And we realized that, hey, we're not going to be able to beat the Yankees playing the way the Yankees do. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the book and movie Moneyball. It was with the Oakland Athletics back in the day. They pretty much cut all their players, had very, very low revenue coming in to purchase and take advantage of trade. So they said, what can we do what does it take to win? And it's to produce runs. What produces a run? What's the metrics that go into producing a run? So you start looking really data analytical and getting down to the micro level and starting piecing together. So what produces wins? So we look at it from a political lens. So what can we piece together to produce a political win? So how many votes does it take to win? How many people are going to turn out in this primary? Where are those people? What is our numbers in Morgan County, Limestone County, Madison County? How many people do we need to reach? We invested heavily in data analytics, so that way we know who our voter is. We know who's going to turn out in this primary election, and we've spent all of our time reaching those voters. And we said, what's the most effective way to gain a vote? It's skin to skin, person to person, looking someone in the eye and telling them why you're running, listening, like I said earlier, to what their concerns are. And that we've seen that's been extremely, extremely beneficial, converting people to votes. People are like, hey, I never heard of you before, but I'm going to vote for you because you sat here on my front porch for 5 minutes, listen to me. And so we looked at it as like, well, what are we going to do? It's like, we're going to go very aggressive on grassroots and making sure that we are targeting people and maximizing our resources, all to voter targeting and voter outreach. Because there's a lot of things. You can sponsor events. You can throw a bunch of ads on TV. And we've done some of that. We've ran ads, from the traditional route and some non-traditional as well. But what can you do to reach the voters? And so we've looked at it through that lens since probably end of October after I fired our DC consultants, and we've moved on, and we've been going ever since. And whether it's on May 25th, the primary, or if there's a runoff, and we're a part of that on June 22nd, would be the day after, we wanted to run a campaign we would be proud of. And so we've structured it in that way. And so come those days, win or lose, we know we ran it how we wanted to run it, and we gave ourselves the best opportunity we could with the resources we have.
Yeah, that's a very new perspective at looking at. I will say that you guys are on not completely opposite, but very different sides of the political spectrum. But you and Bernie Sanders have the same ideas for grassroots campaigning, so that's something.
I'll tell you, Republicans do in the past, and I think we're getting a little better at it, doing organizing, doing that person-to-person, peer-to-peer voter contact. I read, just because it has Bernie Sanders' name on it, and I may disagree with almost everything Bernie Sanders puts out there policy-wise, you can't sit there and say he doesn't have effective campaign strategy. So I looked at his books. I studied what I think Democrats have done better campaigns in the past. I studied the 1960 presidential JFK campaign, the 92 Clinton, the 08 Obama. I looked at those guys that ran very forward-looking, very new generation style campaigns, and it was all about people. It was all about the future. And I was like, I don't care if you're Democrat, Independent, Republican. That's what an election should be about. It should be about the future. It should be about impacting people. And so I studied those campaigns, read so many books, listened to so many podcasts, doing my homework to say, how can I apply from here? I may read a 500-page book and find 2 or 3 good nuggets, but it's 2 or 3 nuggets that are going to move the needle a little bit for our race. And so being willing to put in the work, and not sitting there saying, oh, just because they're a Democrat, I can't learn from them. That's ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. And if Republicans don't wake up and start integrating some of these tactics, we're going to continue to have struggles winning elections. We're going to win in 22, the House, no doubt about it. Senate's more of a coin toss, but it's looking more likely to go Republican. But we've got to grow the party. We've got to focus on addition, not subtraction, because that's what politics are about. It's about building coalitions, about adding to your party base. I mean, we've lost 7 out of the last 8 popular votes on the presidential level. The demographic trends across this nation are not favorable towards Republicans. So unless we start going at elections and campaigns with different tactics, looking to be a big tent party, make the Republican Party look like America, which was diversity, whether through demographics, through age, sexuality, whatever it is, we've got to put together an agenda that makes a difference for people in their daily lives and gets results. That's my biggest complaint I always have, and I've said it multiple times on the trail, is that Republicans, once we take power, we fail to actually put forth an agenda and go execute it. We can point to problems all day, but you rarely see solutions. And I'm not sitting here saying I've got a whole list of, Elizabeth Warren's 30, 40-point plans and stuff like she had in 2020, but we've got to be willing to put the work in and say, put aside all the petty politics and let's go get to work and provide some results, especially with as much hurt as going on across the country right now.
The one thing I know, you said the 92 Clinton, especially the 08 Obama, their campaign strategy similar to yours, focusing on the future, focusing on a younger generation. I feel like you have 2 things running in your favor, at least, and from what I've heard from people my age, and a little bit older to about 23. A lot of people in power are much older than them, are their parents' age or grandparents' age. So
mostly grandparents.
Mostly grandparents. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt, saying parents, but saying there's not as much of a connection with them. There's a disconnect with being born, growing up with an iPhone in your hand, to being grown up with a payphone. Yeah. Just saying there was a disconnect. So being a younger person, being able to connect with them, being not much older than them, being not much older than us, is something that's strong in your favor, as well as a lot of people see it as a negative, but I see it as a positive. The governor and Senate races going on. Like you said, if you can go to somebody before everyone else does, you have your name secured in their eyes before someone else comes.
And another thing, just like you're talking about historical elections. Yeah, the Republican Party didn't lose a presidential election from Lincoln to was it Wilson? I think it was like they lost very few from Lincoln to Wilson. Like when they first came on the scene,
Yes.
they were a populist party, and they had the Gilded Age, which was somewhat of an issue, but I mean they did have a lot of success in that era. So your talk of coalition building could bring a similar run of success in the future if the National Party does decide to follow that lead as they get on. But let's move on to a little bit more policy here. We don't want to talk about electoral demographics the whole time, even though I love that. But let's move on to what you really want to do for the district here. And I know Cam wants to start this with the question.
Like I said, I'm a big cyber guy. I want to major in software engineering and stuff.
There you go.
So I'm just curious on what are your plans for more development in the area for cybersecurity? I know right now I wouldn't say we're at our peaks, but we are right almost at it with the School of Cyber Technology, even UAH getting even bigger, getting a bigger presence and being more well known across the state, the FBI Space Force. So nationally we are being recognized, but to push it so we are more of a household name to say, wow, Huntsville City is a place where I can go and create a cyber business. Even Cyber Huntsville, just so much going on. What are your plans to continue that momentum forward?
Well, we've definitely got a lot of great things that are building. Obviously, you mentioned the cyber school, and Matt Massey and his team are doing a phenomenal job getting that going. That's going to be an asset, not just for North Alabama, but the state as a whole with that narrative. Then you've got a lot of cyber conferences that have now made Huntsville their destination, which is something to build upon. And you've got the FBI, obviously, that's coming in. That's so many resources there. UAH, they just announced they're going to build a new engineering facility on campus that's going to be state of the art. And so making sure that you play your part on the team to keep these things going. From a federal level, my biggest thing that I can most likely provide in this space is resources down to the local and state level where they can be successful implementing different programs, supporting different policies and programs as well. So that starts with getting on the right committees. You've got to be sitting on Capitol Hill. You've got to be on the right committees to have a voice for your district to make sure that you continue to champion those assets that are in greatest need or could give you the most return on your investment for this community. And cyber is huge with that. So I'd love to serve on the Armed Services Committee, Space Science and Technology Committee, and Appropriations Committee. Those are my top three I've identified. If I'm fortunate enough to win, I would say to leadership and folks that are chairmen of those committees, I want to serve on this committee. And so being on that, you would have a voice. You'd be able to have line items put in there to support that. So if the cyber school needs additional funding, you can go fight for that. If we need additional SCIF space for companies that need to have those classified briefings for the cyber side of things, we can provide for that. We make sure that we have whether it's internet access, the highest safety and security out of anybody. Making sure that Huntsville is second to none on high-speed internet, Wi-Fi capabilities, and secure networks. So making sure that we provide, again, the resources for that. And then also, I think a lot of things we can do is support programs that are talking to folks like, your age and my age and saying, hey, this is the pathway of success, providing those mentorship opportunities and really training up that next generation. So I think it's a regional team, whether working with Mayor Battle and his administration, the people on Redstone, and just being a part of that team player to make sure that if there's a way from the federal level I can positively impact the cyber community or support that, we want to do so. Then also making sure that across as China and Russia continue to grow and try to cause these incursions that are happening right now, making sure that Huntsville is well positioned to secure this nation. And again, that's from an armed services standpoint, providing those resources. So we want to make sure Huntsville is a place that they can rely on. We've got the manpower, the workforce, and the infrastructure for us to really be that dominant leader on cyber.
The second part, so you have the technological part of the cybersecurity, but the second part of it, I feel like it's a two-pronged thing with infrastructure and supply chains, being devastated by COVID. The fact that we've outsourced all of our production to other countries for more profits has really crippled us, and it's showing now. So on your campaign website, I believe it's johnrobertsal.com, just to promote a little bit there, you have a very pro-American business perspective. But I think obviously it's obviously going to be very good, but I think one issue with that would be just like to bring companies back. How would you entice them to come back? Because I mean, it'll be good for everybody will benefit. More jobs, better paying jobs for Americans. Kind of a coming back to like the golden age of production. But how would you
rely on someone else's I guess internalized issues?
Yeah.
So if something happens with their country, it affects us. It's the same.
Yeah. So like America affects America. So how would you want to bring them back, and how would you also try to bring that into District 5 instead of Michigan or Ohio or anywhere like that?
Definitely so. So I think one of the silver linings from the COVID pandemic and now what we're seeing as Russia is people woke up to see that we are too reliant on other nations, and especially bad actor nations that do not have our interests at heart and are actively each and every day trying to top us on the global stage. And so we've got to make sure that whether it be pharmaceuticals, semiconductors, PPE, that we are never reliant on other nations across the globe chain. So I think that economic development background I had is really pivotal in helping us provide the infrastructure and the process to bring these jobs home. It's got to start with incentives. People, they complain about the incentive process sometimes that we're giving handouts to companies. There's never a company that locates here in North Alabama or a project I worked on that there was not a greater ROI for the community at large than what was put into the project. Look at Mazda Toyota. It's $1.8 billion from the get-go. They already did an addition there and added about 400 million more. You look at the tier 1 suppliers, the tier 2, tier 3s that go across the region. The return on that, the education dollars that are coming into the school systems, once the abatements, once they go through the process, I think they're up to 20 years there on the Mazda Toyota project, you'll start seeing an even bigger tax windfall. So it's people that complain about that, they are complaining about a narrative that doesn't exist. We invest in companies that are going to be good for the community. We don't just incentivize any company. It's got to make sense. The wages have to be solid enough. The type of investment and the jobs that it creates has to be the right number. So if we're going to bring these jobs home, we've got to create an environment that incentivizes people to relocate those jobs. We've got to come up with creative packages to say, hey, North Alabama is the place we want to locate those. You look at semiconductors. 70% of the world's semiconductor supply comes from Taiwan. Say China wakes up here soon and they say, hey, we're going to invade Taiwan. And they seize control of the island. Well, they're going to seize control of the production of semiconductors. There goes our automotive industry. There goes our computers. There goes our iPhones.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I also want to say Taiwan, I think, is the biggest producer of chips.
I think they have 93% of all production in the world.
So not only semiconductors, but just like computer chips. They have like I wouldn't say pretty much a monopoly on computer chips.
I don't know if it's 93, but it's in the 90s.
It is a very high percentage.
It's a very, very important region of the U.S.
And so we've got to make sure we bring those capabilities home. And so we've got to have a workforce that can produce those products. We've got to have infrastructure because those take huge amounts of power. Our partners at TVA, they do a great job supplying power to the valley. We've got to make sure that they have the capacity to take on these huge production factories. So that's key. You look at what President Trump did with tariffs. There's some heartburn there with some tariffs and saying that's ends up being a tax on the American people. And there's some argument and truth to that. But it evens the playing field globally. It incentivizes companies to relocate those, whether it's an expansion or removing things all together from China and bring them back home. So you've got to do things that keep America's best interest at heart. It may not be the thing that is most economical in the short term, but in long term, as competition grows, as innovation continues to develop, that price will be driven down. I mean, that's economics 101, supply and demand. So we've got to bring that supply home. We've got to make sure we invest in our next generation workforce, starting in the K through 12 system, post-secondary as well. That way we've got a steady pipeline of ready-to-go workers. And then we've got to have good sites. That's not something that people really even think about. Is you can't just say, hey, Huntsville's a great place to put this XYZ company. Well, do they have sewer? Do they have water? Do they have 5G capabilities? What's the labor shed? Where are they getting their employees from? What's the drive time or the road infrastructure? And that doesn't happen overnight. So making sure we have ready-to-go sites all across North Alabama and across obviously we want to see North Alabama succeed first, and then the state of Alabama, and then the country as a whole. But from my position, but we've got to make sure we do the due diligence on the front end to be able to be successful on the back end. Mazda Toyota would not have happened if we didn't have that site ready. We lost several years back before the Mazda Toyota project, Volkswagen. They were down to the finalists, us in Chattanooga, and they ended up going to Chattanooga. The governor made a late-night call, offered a package that was just an offer that was too good to refuse, and they went up and started in Chattanooga. But because of that exercise we went through, the preparation that went in, we saw where our deficiencies were, our weaknesses were, and we stepped up, we fixed those, mitigated any problems for a future project, and then we were able to land a project that was even bigger than Volkswagen. So making sure that we're doing the work necessary now, investment early to reap the returns later. And so that's something we've got to do. And I think especially as we continue to basically decouple from China, I know there's a big cry across the nation, and I agree with a lot of it. And we're not talking little widgets, something that goes in a children's toy or something. We're talking stuff that's, serious to our critical supply chain. We've got to make sure that from a federal standpoint that we're providing incentive programs and applying pressure on these companies to bring them home.
So I guess you said you wanted to mainly focus on children in K through 12 and secondary.
To promote the.
Yeah. I know one thing that a lot of schools are getting now, but not enough of, at least in my opinion. My school has a lot of opportunities, but putting kids in front of them in the high school, middle school age, because some kids may only think college is the one right answer, or there's not. You can't go be an electrician. There is Mazda Toyota. And I now feel people are talking about it, but no one's really implementing it. So putting those kind of, what would I say? Not opportunities, but programs into schools. How would you try to implement those across the area?
Yeah, I think there's some things we can do from the federal standpoint as far as grant opportunities and supporting those, but I do think that's a local up issue. I want the local school system to have the autonomy to run programs how they see fit. But I think the thing you can do is apply pressure on private companies to come to the table, say we need those public-private partnerships. What are your demands? And we need you to support these programs. That way you can have a supply, similar to what the home builders did. We went, the industry said, we need workers, so what are we going to do to fix it? I think collectively private organizations will have to come to the table as well. But I do think changing that narrative that a 4-year degree is not the only path to success is slowly starting to change. I think. So I graduated high school in 2010. I think I was at probably the pinnacle of that narrative, where growing, starting in the 90s through the 2000s of going through school, that it was college. But now with the career academies that are happening through the K through 12 schools, that have really seen some good success stories through those programs, and then a lot of short-term certificates, the 2-year system becoming more expansive. I think there's a lot of opportunity for people not to see that college is the got-to route. It's because it's not. I'm not sure you guys aren't probably there yet, but you'll get to home ownership soon. And when you got something that's whether it's less, they're not cheap, and so you can make a very sustainable living. And changing parents' attitudes, saying that it's okay for your son or daughter to pursue a skilled trade. Here's the pathway, and here's people that have had huge amounts of success and have the economic freedom to do what they like and support their family. So changing that narrative. But from a federal standpoint, I don't really see too many things I would personally want to implement other than providing the resources. I'm not one that wants the federal government to say, here's a blanket policy. This is what you need to do. I don't want federal education programs for local and state programs.
I want to do one more technological question before we dive into some human aspects of the district, like mental health and stuff. But you have another big thing on your campaign website is about big tech, and we've seen a lot of issues with just a lot of big tech platforms having this after January 6th censoring President Trump after Biden's inauguration. And you mentioned Section 230, which I'll just go ahead and just state for anybody listening that doesn't know, because I feel like that's it's said a lot, but no one knows what it means. But Section 230 says that no provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or speaker of any information provided by another information content provider, which means that Twitter and Facebook and all of those content, they're protected from like the words of their users, so you can't really legally like
you can't sue them.
Yeah,
if
you
someone's,
can't sue them.
If someone's saying something like crazy on their webpage, some propaganda,
Yeah.
Facebook
So,
and Twitter can be held liable.
But that's the thing. You say you want one free speech platform, and obviously we've seen attempts at making new platforms, but they're just essentially monopolies because it's the public square. So how would you free speech is obvious, it's a right for us in the Constitution. How would you I don't even like it. What would you do for these companies where you can like not force but like kind of nudge them into free speech, like allowing free speech on their platforms, but also letting them like run as individual companies? Or would you support like nationalizing the platforms to make it a completely free speech platform, but making it a government arm? Or what would you like? Where's the solution?
I think this is one of the diciest subjects that we have from a regulatory standpoint moving forward. I don't pretend to have a sure solution, but if you've got these media conglomerates that are acting like editors and are removing content based on party affiliation or certain slants, you look at the Hunter Biden laptop story. There's thoughts on that. I don't want to dive into them too much, but basically a week before the election, they censored that, so this was a classic case of disinformation, and it turned out to be true. So if they're acting as those editors like a newspaper does, we need to take a strong look at removing that opportunity for them not to be held liable when they start influencing that and silencing voices. I think the antidote to bad speech is just more speech. I think you've got to have more free speech. I'm a conservative and I'm a constitutionalist. I want to make sure we uphold that standard. And it's a dicey subject for me personally because these are private companies. They have the opportunity to operate privately within the regulations that are set forth by the United States government. But when they start having that monopoly where there is no other competitors and they start silencing voices, then they start crossing into this gray area. And that's where we are right now, is having clear definitions of what is free speech, what is overreach from these private companies with still keeping the integrity of a private company. And that's where the problem is. But I believe in making sure that they are held accountable and through maximum transparency. I want to make sure that we understand these algorithms. People say, well, it's an algorithm that did that. Well, there's a human behind that algorithm. What is the mindset of that person? How are they developing those algorithms? Having extreme accountability. I think with Elon Musk, as y'all all saw this past week, coming in with over a 9% stake in Twitter, I think he seems, based on his past performance and history, that he's committed to free speech. So I think it's an opportunity for Twitter to right some wrongs, to provide a blueprint for maybe other companies. But if these companies continue on this trajectory where they are silencing one side of the aisle, it's always one side and it's never the other. The mistakes always go in one direction, never the other. And so there's something there to that. Again, do we need to go to Teddy Roosevelt antitrust busting? I don't know if we're there yet, or if we ever need to get to that. But you look at what Standard Oil and things happened back in the early 1900s, that they were a true monopoly. You've got to allow competitive practices to take place in America. That's just how we were founded. That's the principles we're founded on. And so we're going through maybe one of those episodes again. Again, I don't have the solution, but understanding, growing up with this technology. I've been on social media, I guess, since 2007. That doesn't make me an expert by any means, but when they brought in Mark Zuckerberg before a Senate hearing committee several years ago, and one of the senators asked Mark Zuckerberg, said, "How do you make money?" And he said, "Sir, we sell ads." And you've got people that don't even understand the basic structures of these companies. So how can you expect them to regulate in an appropriate manner? So I just think, from my mindset and perspective, I think I'm in a better position than any of the other candidates to understand that. But I think this is something that's going to play out for the next few years. But again, I'm always err on the side of more free speech is always better. More accountability is always better. More transparency is always better. And so I'm going to look at those three prongs and try to develop regulatory policy that shows that.
I was gonna just go back a little bit. The laptop story, I don't really know the full details, but I do know the New York Post was the one that was censored. That's the oldest newspaper in the country, founded by
Alexander Hamilton founded it. And
so
we weren't able to even put a story out.
Yeah, but there's but this is the issue. Like, you can say, competition for like social media companies, it's I feel like for every other business, competition's good, but I think if you have Twitter, like, so the Twitter's the public space, like, de facto, but you can't really make another Twitter. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's like you can't make another Twitter. You can make another Twitter, but you can't make it. And like, if you make a Twitter, if you have a Twitter for liberals and a Twitter for conservatives, that's not good. Like, because there's no discourse.
You're gonna be in an echo chamber.
Yeah, you're gonna be in an echo chamber. So like, I think they're essentially monopolies, but I don't see how, personally, I think, like, there's no way to actually incentivize competition because they have such a stranglehold on the market that breaking them up and would actually worsen the public just because, like, you're not...
sector where there's only going to be a couple of winners. I mean, it's not like you can have 30 different social media companies and people can visit 30 different apps on their phone, and it's just, that's not realistic. It's not... it's not like a notebook you go looking for on Amazon where there could be 100 different variations and you pick one out, whatever, etc. There's only going to be a couple winners, and so there's always going to be some sense of a monopoly on that. But I just want to make sure that they play by the rules, are held to clear standards, and there's regulatory oversight. That way, they can't get out of line or censor and go censor on one side only. It appears in most cases.
Yeah. I was gonna say. What was I gonna say? Shoot. Oh, yeah. He's not going to be on Twitter after today. So there it goes. He's not going to be on Twitter. They're going to take him off. They're going to take us off, too. No, but, yeah, I don't... That's like the... Oh, yeah, this is what it was. So you wouldn't support nationalizing the programs to make it, like, mandatory free speech or anything like that?
No, I mean, I'm against most efforts of nationalization. I think there's very, very few industries that you can do nationalization with effectively, and obviously defense being one, road and certain infrastructure being another. I think this is a totally different ball game. I don't want to see the federal government take over of social media. I think that'd be a recipe for disaster.
I feel like it's a fine line they have to walk because some people are just spreading propaganda. That does have to be removed.
Yeah, like the Russian foreign minister and the Ukrainian foreign minister.
So just things like that, but also people should not be limited by what they say, but there does need to be a limit of free speech and what you're saying is completely out of line, if that makes sense. Like,
especially, I mean, there's a responsibility from especially people that are elected officials, leaders on the global stage. They have responsibility. Their words carry weight, their words matter, and they impact people. But I don't see the federal government forcing social media's hands on some of those issues. I'm always for less intervention, and there's some things that are necessary. So that's, again, I err on that side. But we all have a responsibility, and especially me running for Congress. I know what I say, not just because of who I am. That's not it. It's the seat I will hold holds weight. It carries a certain level of decency and decorum, and we got to make sure we hold people accountable. And that's something I plan to do.
I have one more thing real quick about nationalization, just like not about social media, but just in general. What would you, just a little quick message, or what would you do? Would you support nationalizing oil companies to make sure they drill on the land they're leased instead of holding those permits, and improving refineries to process American oil instead of having to import from Saudi Arabia or Russia or Yemen or wherever?
Yeah, I don't want to nationalize the oil industry. I want to, take away those regulatory burdens, open up those leases, and let private companies do what they do best, and that's create the most efficient, source of whatever product they're producing. And I think allowing those companies, whether it be a Shell, a Chevron, a BP, to have the maximum opportunity to drill or produce oil for the American people, that way we can become net exporters once again. Oil and natural gas is the key to everything. I mean, you can't have a functioning economy. Even just like the plastic that goes on a car is petroleum. I mean, we've got to have access to drill. And right now, I'm all for diversifying energy sources, but we can't become too reliant or move too quick away. We're not there yet. I'm very big in nuclear power. I think that is the safest, most reliable source of energy we've got currently right now.
I think you just won Ishan over with that statement.
I'm the only person advocating for nuclear power, I feel like.
You're my man then.
I feel like you definitely won Ishan over with that statement. If he wasn't going to vote for you, he is now. I'll tell you that for sure.
I can't say that right now.
Well, data's there. I mean, there's episodes in history that have scared people off. There's obviously a stigma around it, but it is far and few in between. You look at the damage that solar panels and wind turbines do to the natural environment, to wildlife. It is way better to go for nuclear power. But I do want, I want some solar panels. I want some wind turbines. But having a diverse set of energy creators and producers. But right now, in the short term, we're looking at it through a 2 to 5 year lens, not a 20 to 50 year lens. That's totally different. We're talking energy policy. We've got to do what we can right now to lower gas prices for the American people. We've got to become energy independent in the short term. That is natural gas and oil. And so we've got to open up those capabilities while spurring innovation, incentivizing people to develop technology, whether it's carbon capture technology or things that make us a cleaner environment. Because I mean, you can say that, global warming is a farce. It's not there, but there is some truth. I mean, there is human impacts on the natural environment. Is it to the level that people say it is, where the sea is going to rise by X amount of feet and we're going to have, over 1 billion people extinct in the next 100 years? Goodness, I don't think there's any real serious data that supports that. I actually live next door to the state climatologist. He's won part of a Nobel Peace Prize, and he and I have talked about some of this, and there's a lot of people that are alarmist out there, and to the point that it undermines the success of our domestic economy. So we've got to be very smart and deliberate and data driven. Make sure we are reliable sources that are backed by data that impact our legislative decisions. But short term, we've got to drill and produce more natural gas. Long term, invest in nuclear power and diverse sets of energy output. So that's what I'm for.
I think two things here real quick. One, that point right there, that kind of shows the intersection between a little bit of traditional conservatism and then youth. Because I don't hear people saying drill more now, but then invest for the future. Because obviously, you're right, we can't.
It's not going to last forever.
We can't solve climate change in 3 years. We have to focus on the future. So that's actually a good point. The second thing, every time someone says windmills, I think of President Trump saying, they killed the birds. It just makes me laugh. I don't know. But, I didn't even think about talking about energy before the podcast. So I'm glad we touched on it.
I can talk about this.
That's obviously one of the foremost things right now. So certainly always happy to talk it.
Yeah.
Let's do some humanities here, because there are people. People are voting for you. So another thing, something not mentioned enough, I think, is I kind of wanted to touch on this with education, but I decided to hold off, is mental health. So you have a mental health stance on your platform. Mental health is suicide rates, especially, and depression rates. They've been increasing,
especially among children our age,
females, women, and children for sure. And that's coincided a lot with social media, but that's not what we're going to talk about, obviously. I know it's brought up a lot, but there's never really a catch-all policy that can really help. So what do you what do you want to I'd assume you'd want to work with local officials on this, but what do you really want to accomplish in this
definitely
sense?
so. I mean, this is one of those issues I alluded to earlier, where we get down all these rabbit holes talking about things that are unimportant in the grand scheme of things, and we're missing the boat on people that are suffering. There are people that are going through some real issues. Mental health is certainly one of those. I think you look at homelessness, drug addiction, a lot of the undergirdings of those are caused by mental health issues. I mean, that's first and foremost. It's not economic woes typically for homelessness. It's driven by mental health. So what are we doing for people that are struggling through that? I think you got to destigmatize that. And I think we've made huge strides on that front. I think people are talking about it more. It's more widely accepted that it's a real issue, whether it's through an employer that's allowing more mental health breaks. There's more resources for local entities to support those. But, looking at it, I do want to provide grant opportunities. There's things like Wellstone that's here in Huntsville that provides mental health resources, making sure that they have the funding, line items there to accomplish all they need. Or it's maybe training for first responders that when a police is called to come on, that it's a mental health issue, that a mental health trained professional is coming out there to answer that call instead of someone that's going out there without the proper training. There's things like that we've experienced here. Drug Court is a program where it's basically people that are going through drug struggles with that mental health side of it that typically in the past would be put in jail or prison, but they're going through a program that has accountability that walks them through this process. And for every $1 invested in drug courts, there's a $27 return on investment. We've sat in on these hearings over in Morgan County, Jackson County. They actually were kind of the champion and laid the blueprint for this program. But investing in outside the box ways to say, how can we help people instead of putting another burden in front of them? And so mental health is, again, at the base of a lot of these issues. And one thing I want to do specifically on a policy front that we've heard from first responders is people talk about how first responders respond to mental health problems, but no one talks about the mental health of those people that are the first responders. They're going through traumatic experiences very, very frequently. They're typically, when they get a call, they're responding to someone's worst day, someone's worst moment. And so they go through a lot of traumatic things, and they don't have the resources or a hotline or a place to call or to get any kind of counseling for the things they go through. So saying that, hey, here's a piece of policy that we can put forth to provide the resources and the funding and the infrastructure for our first responders. That way they can go and help the people, the regular civilians out there that are going through these issues that are responding to. But ultimately, we just got to continue to do more. Again, going back to data-driven projects and making sure that we try different things. It's going to be very tough to find a one-size-fits-all solution, but there's going to be local and state programs that are more efficient for somewhere like in North Alabama versus Northern California. And so making sure we're not going and say, hey, here's a blanket policy, because it's not going to be the same response for everybody. So finding what works, and then on the drug side of things, which again is I think all tied in with mental health as well, doing things to remove those opioids from our community. A lot of that is securing the border. I think that's one of the first things we can accomplish to help on that front. But just again, providing people with the resources and remembering that it's about improving these people's lives and not trying to say, hey, you've done something wrong. I mean, there's people that do commit crimes that have mental health problems, but saying, hey, what can we do first to help you get back, functioning of your mind, get back to some sense of normality, and then we can address some of the other issues. But putting people first is always a great place to start with mental health.
Another thing, instead of mental health, we go into physical health. This is still a national issue, but still can be centered down to North Alabama, considering the high obesity and diabetic rate.
The whole South, really.
High obesity and diabetic rates. Do you have any proposed ideas for either people giving them access to materials to work out, or
there was
plans or something along those lines? I'm not saying those are your ideas, but something along those lines.
I'm somebody that I love to stay active. That's probably the best thing for my mental health. That keeps me clear. I love working out every morning, and having access to those resources is key.
That's good.
So you look at something facility, rock climbing wall. They've got a huge gym. They've got a weight room there. That didn't have as much access to these resources beforehand.
We might have. I think he's just cut out for a little bit here.
And making.
Mr. Roberts, you kind of cut out for a little bit.
You cut out for most of that, actually.
Most of your response
we'll
cut out.
We'll just wait a little bit. Okay. You look good now on our screen. He looks good.
Yeah, he looks good.
So can you just just go over the whole thing again? Sorry about that.
Before you do, can I tack on one last little piece to that? I know not only actually giving them access to these facilities, but to better prescriptions and medications for them, to help get them back active, get them back in shape. I just wanted to add that onto the question.
Anything else?
Okay, I think we're good now.
Okay, yeah, I think. Oh, hold on, he's not moving. Okay, I think you're good to go now. Okay, can you just? Sorry about that.
Yeah. The research part, I think it'd be a little bit better for me if it's on my end. But the second largest research park in America, and sometimes I have internet problems. It just doesn't make sense. But anyways, back to the question at hand. Making resources available, I think it's happened again.
No, you're good.
You're good.
Things like the J.O. Johnson facility that they turned into a community center out there. They've got a rock climbing wall, a state-of-the-art gym. basketball, etc. They've got a lot of resources that were not available to people in that community typically. And so making sure that we provide local resources, whether it be matching dollars or grants, to continue that. And the access to medications and health resources is something that we've got to do a better job of. I'm all for drug price transparency and driving that cost down. I think if you drive that cost down, you can provide a larger supply for people, and so making it more attainable and affordable, and putting these resources again back in the middle of these communities. You can't expect someone that's got to take a bus 30, 40 minutes across town, or someone that doesn't even have access to public transit to go do that each and every day. They've got children and families. They've got maybe 2 jobs they're working. So what can we do to bring those resources right to their community? Again, I do think that's a local and state issue, but what can I do to play a part of that team to provide those resources? But it's something that the state of Alabama is one of the worst rated states in America consistently on, is that the health side of things. So we need to do more. I don't know exactly what more looks like in the short term from the federal standpoint, but I say all that to say I'm willing to have those conversations, see where we can make some strides, and work together to provide progress for people.
In addition to just high everything here, diabetes rates are very high as well. And recently, I think Representative Craig of Minnesota introduced the Affordable Insulin Now Act, which I think it caps insulin to $35 a month for people, like monthly doses for $35 or lower, depending on just a lot of additional to that, but $35 or less. Price caps historically haven't really worked with the gas and a lot of other things. Yep. But do you think that it's a step in the right direction, trying to make insulin more affordable or maybe even free for people that need it? Or do you have a...
Yeah, I'd have to see the bill, see how it's written. I do think in general, for Economics 101, price caps are typically not a positive for people. But when you're talking healthcare to insulin, it's a very niche market with it is a growing population that needs those kind of resources. But something I would look at. I do want it to get cheaper. Obviously, I want to drive that price down. I just don't know if price caps are the mechanism to do so. But I'm all in favor, but that's something that actually wasn't on my radar, his bill, so I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, just a couple more national questions here just to round out you as a candidate. Senator Ossoff of Georgia introduced a bill that bans stock trading. This is mainly due to the backlash that the guy he beat, Senator Perdue of Georgia, and Tom Tillis, Dianne Feinstein, a lot of those senators, those older senators, were caught not insider trading, but definitely insider trading.
No.
Because just right before the pandemic started, they had massive increases in defense stocks and sold a lot of technological stocks, things like that. So definitely some kind of suspicious activity. But his bill, he has a proposal that bans stock trading for Congress and their immediate families, while Missouri Senator Hawley has a ban that bans it for just the members of Congress,
but not it keeps the families.
Yeah. So, do you agree with do you agree with that? Do you think it's a sacrifice that Congress should make, and which one do you think would be better off for the families?
Yeah, well, first, y'all probably have seen the Nancy Pelosi tractor on Twitter.
I forgot. Yeah, they took it down.
I'm missing the boat there.
They took down Pelosi's actually. Twitter took it down. Twitter took down the account. It was a while back.
We're going full circle with our conversation.
Yeah. But go ahead, yeah.
I am 100% in favor of banning direct stock trading for individual stocks for members of Congress. Whether that's implemented before I take the oath of office, I'm going to move mine into a blind trust and move it into ETFs and index funds where there's no perceived visual of me, trading on insider knowledge. I do think some of it may be overblown. I think there's certainly members that take advantage of that, and they should be punished to the fullest extent. But some of it, I don't think a lot of members are going to do that. But I think one thing we've got to do is restore trust in the system. And if there's that perception that you're trading on insider knowledge, that you're going up there for self-gain and making money for you and your family, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And we've got to make sure we don't have that perception. I don't want to create that with me, so I've committed to doing that. And will support legislation I don't think me or my spouse should be able to do that directly. Now, once you start going into children and things, I mean, I'm just now having my firstborn in August, baby boy, so it's probably a little while before he can trade some stocks. So it may not be an immediate thing for me personally, but that's something. There's a little nuance to that one, but the foundational issue of me or my spouse being able to trade stocks, I'm in full favor of allowing or disallowing that opportunity.
And I see how you said, like, I know how a lot of people.
I just add one thing just to clear it up. It's for dependent children. It's not for just like children. It's like until they're not dependent of you as if you were a congressman. It's just until they're
until they're 18.
Until they're independent. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to clear, it's not like a lifetime ban or anything. Go ahead, Cam. Sorry about that.
I know how you said, like, I know a lot of people that go into Congress aren't going in there, like, with the mindset of, if I win the election, man, dude, those Boeing stocks are going to go crazy. I'm going to be rich. But like you said, it is with a lack of trust going on just across the board with the people's, like, trust in government, trust in Congress, trust in the Senate. Those 10 people actually with that thought process can make the entirety of everyone look bad. So I see why it was proposed, and I feel like it could be a step in the right direction to restore trust.
Yeah, shout out to Unusual Whales on Twitter for tracking all of those and making that a big public discourse thing. And also our favorite Senator Tuberville, he's up there. So he's he did say recently that it's a benefit of being in Congress of getting those trades. So that was nice to hear from our great.
When was this?
It was a couple weeks ago. He's been saying a lot of things, but it's
I've heard a lot of the things he said, but not that one.
He's been pretty vocal in opposition of this bill.
Well, I can talk for myself, and I'm against being able to trade individual stocks. So y'all got my commitment. If elected, I will support legislation banning that practice, and if it's not banned officially, I would self-impose a ban on me and my wife.
Yeah, President Biden actually has never traded stocks in Congress. That's one thing that he has done very well. He never traded stocks. Yeah.
Also, I guess I'll finish.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So I was just a question. I mean, obviously everyone wants to win. I mean, I enjoy winning, Ishan. I know you enjoy winning, but if you come down to the point where you know this is not going to be a logical decision to move forward, is there a candidate for U.S. Senate that you feel would best represent you in our district that you would feel comfortable with endorsing?
Even if you win, is there a Senate candidate?
Is there someone that you think, like, man, this is a really good guy?
Or this
I love.
female,
or girl. Sorry.
Yeah, you do have you got Katie Britt out there. So for me, I mean, I'm going to have to work with whoever is elected. I know this sounds and I hate the politician answer, but this is going to be the one politician answer I give you guys today. I'm going to have to work with whoever it is. If I'm in this office or if I'm not successful, I still intend to be engaged in the political process in the state. And so I want to be able to support whoever it's in there. I do think we've actually got some good options. That always hasn't been the case in the state. I think we've got some people that's got a good record. We have people that bring some different angles on things. You do have Katie Britt, a young woman. I think that would speak volumes for the image of Alabama and her effectiveness with her background. I think Mike Durant, obviously, with his story of patriotism and her heroics and
Black
business.
Black
Hawk Down. I think he's got a lot of great things going for him. And then Mo Brooks, if you're a conservative, I mean, he's the one with a long record of conservatism. You can disagree with some things he says or does, but he does have a conservative record that is backed up by his record there. So I think there's a little bit of something for most people, and not everybody. There's still probably some people that are disgruntled with their options, but I think compared to some other races and compared to some past races, this one actually provides the people of Alabama a solid choice moving forward. But it's, as a political bystander, if I wasn't running my own race and doing this has been a fun one to watch. You've seen a lot of ups and downs, the different angles, and then we see these, the guys and girls on the trail a lot, and so it's been fun talking with their camps and hearing their different speeches out there on the trail. But I'm excited to watch this one down the wire, but we're certainly focused on winning our race.
I think we're over 2 now on trying to force someone to endorse a Senate candidate. But that's fairly certain. I think there's a lot of variety in the Republican camp this year. Even on the Democrat side, there's some pretty decent candidates. I mean, I don't think they'll have a good shot at winning, but Brandon
They have
Dean,
been not as, how would I say? I mean, a lot of people, including myself, joke about it that they just have not tried this time. I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't
like,
know, they
there's been not
definitely
much.
haven't, yeah.
This is no hate.
They don't
just
care.
not. They're
It's
not
like,
pushing.
they're
They're
not
not
gonna
pushing
win, yeah.
anything forward. Not
But,
pushing
yeah.
a solid candidate to make a.
Well, there is Brandon Dean's actually not a bad candidate, but he hasn't done much.
Yeah,
He was a mayor in somewhere suburb of Birmingham, but he hasn't been able to really campaign much. The National Democrats have not looked at this race as competitive. So, but
And that's one thing. Not to divert from this topic, but that's one thing I think is a big contributor to the state we are in this country is the lack of competition within individual congressional districts. I think there's like around 35 maybe competitive congressional districts nationwide back in 2020. You look at it 20 years ago, it was around 85. 20 years before that, it was around 150 competitive districts. Mm-hmm. When you've got when you've got just a,
it's happened again. Research
Park. Putting forth.
Okay.
You got me again now?
Yeah, Research Park is not helping
yeah.
today. This is for the leaders. You cut for a little bit there. You were.
We don't have to sit there and appeal to the most red or the most blue. I think it really hinders the system. You lack the competition of ideas. It's more who can be bomb throwers and throw out the most red or blue meat out there versus saying, hey, these are the solutions I put forth. So while I want Republicans to win almost every time, I do think the way that we've got to structure our system and some of the perverse incentives that are out there is cause a state like Alabama to lack any kind of investment from the Democrats because it's just not worth it. I think competition breeds success. Again, I want the Republicans to come out on top every time over a Democrat, but I think competition and accountability is healthy for democracy. And so I hope moving forward that we see more competition from both sides. I want Republicans to be more competitive in larger Democratic districts. So something I'm committed to helping out moving forward is making sure we're competitive across the board and having serious conversations about serious policy instead of, again, that petty politics and just whatever the most red or blue meat is.
I have one last question. Do you have anything else? Or are you done? Just for fun here. I don't even think this is just for fun. If you win and you are in Congress, would you try to reform the Electoral College to where so every elector is tied to a district outside of the two that are tied to the state? Is that something you would like? Is that? Cause I don't think that's something that like is brought up. I just like thought about it. It's like, what do you think about that? Like tying every elector to a district.
I'm not going to reform the Electoral College system as I mean, I think it's good. I think our founders planned it the way they planned it for a reason, and I think it's again where you can't just have the majority trample over the minority, the coast really trample over the centers of America. I think it is one of the guardrails in in the constitutional republic we are that provides a little bit of normalcy. I think there's very few of that, as I alluded to a moment ago. But I think the Electoral College is one of those that's healthy for democracy. It's easy to say it right now when it's benefited my side of the aisle more so than the other. So I don't want to. I'm not sitting there saying just because it's benefiting me now, but I think I'm going to have that stance, even if it goes against Republicans down the road. I just think it's one of those good things. So no, I'm not going to reform that system anytime soon.
I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm just saying that tie all of the votes except 100 that go to the states and the 3 to DC to the districts individually. That's just I was just thinking about it. I don't want to get rid of the Electoral College, guys.
Sorry for putting words in your mouth there.
No, you're good. That's everything we have. Do you have any? I know you have like a campaign. Do you have any campaign info, any events, anything to promote here?
Yeah, so JohnRobertsAL.com is my website. John Roberts AL is our Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all that. I'm going to be on the Dale Jackson show tomorrow at 8:35 a.m., so it's a short-term thing if you want to tune in for it. But I'll kind of end with this, that we can't keep sending the same people to D.C. and expecting different results. We've got to go outside the box, and I'm not just talking about my candidacy. We got to look and challenge people to do things that aren't typical. Because it's right now there's atypical times, there's problems that exist that we've got to send new people to handle. And then you guys, something that's been for me being young, there's been a lot of folks that told me not to get in this race. There's people said that I should wait my turn. Some advice to you guys, just from my short-term experience, not that I know all by any stretch, but don't don't sit there and let people tell you what you can or can't do. They don't know what you're capable of. They don't know what your abilities are. Based on the conversation we've had and what you guys put out there, you can write your own ticket, whatever careers you guys choose or public office if you pursue it. So don't sit there and let someone tell you that you can't do it. And so that's one thing I've really encouraged the next generation. I know y'all had Jalen Cotton on recently, and I told Jalen, I was like, you're 19 years old. There's going to be a lot of people that tell you that you shouldn't or can't, but just know that you can, and that if you're in it for the right reason and you're willing to put in ridiculous amounts of hard work, you can achieve whatever you want to achieve. There's no shortcuts for success. You got to put in the work, and that's one thing. I put together my own signs. I do my own social media ads. I knock my own doors. I'm not going to ever ask anybody to do something that I'm not willing to do, and there's no shortcut for it. So you guys, if y'all consistently put in these kind of performances and keep it up, again, I'll be working for y'all one day. So I look forward to seeing what takes place the next few years for y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And good luck with your campaign. And shout out to Jalen for actually giving me your phone number to
I appreciate him passing that along. So this has been fun. I've had several interviews, but this has been the coolest one yet because it's been long form and we're just freewheeling.
Let's go.
And I like that style. So thank y'all for that opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you for coming on. We'll put his info in the description of the episode. It'll be available everywhere tomorrow morning, actually. So they might, if people come in really early and listen to it, they'll be able to catch you on the show. But we'll see. For us personally, PB Political, we have pppolitical.com, our website, PB Political AL, Instagram, Twitter. We just had a Senate forecast at the time of release. We have a Senate forecast out at PB Political from Michael Boddicker. So make sure to check that out. And everything else just
PB Political endorsed by Mr. John Roberts.
Yeah, but we did not endorse anybody, just to clear that up, because we're independent. So we'll see. But it was fun talking to you. I'm Ishan Pokrell.
My name's Cameron Cummings.
And goodbye, guys.